Welcome back, artists. I'm Wyatt Paints, and today I've got an easy breezy, no stress episode for you. Recently, a client sent me a whole box of stuff he was itching to get some paint on. And there was a Rick Sanchez head in there that would just be perfect for an easy paint project. And that's something I could use because it's been quite hectic in the studio the last 2 weeks. And to add to it, I've got some really cool builds that I'm planning coming up. So an easy peasy no stress project is just what I needed. For this one, I'm going to try to recreate the show using flat colors and black lining. So flexing those fundamental skills is necessary so we can get smooth coats and clean lines. So let's not waste any time. I'm going to grab my brushes. Let's get started. Now, you can probably tell this is an FDM print from all the telltale layer lines. This can't really be avoided even with dialed in settings. And while I could resurface this with a bit of resin to smooth it out, but in situations when it's just going to be a desk doohickey, it's not absolutely necessary. And since my client is looking for a cartoon style, the lines will be less bothersome. To start off, black-green. I laid down a thin base all over while reserving some of the black primer in the recesses. Allowing the primer to stand in for the deepest shadow is an easy way to get contrast on your model. You don't always have to completely cover the primer, even when base painting. And here it's saving time as well, as I won't have to come back with an ink or anything to darken them up. It's good to go in one go. Next, Escorpina green. I put this on using a fairly wet dry brush, so don't let the patchiness put you off. The goal here is to build up layers of this, blending all the patchiness together smoothly. You just have to make sure to give it a few minutes under a fan to completely dry each layer, or you risk ripping up the previous layer. Finally, livery green. This was used to finish off the green with a stippled highlight. The first few taps should be very targeted in the areas needing the most highlighting, then slowly blend it out towards the shadow. For the teeth, a bit of Starship exterior. Since I still had the brush out, I stippled this on each tooth to practice my aim and feathering. I was marginally successful, but this isn't a big deal as I was expecting to need black line for the teeth anyways. That's where Nuln Oil comes in. Aiming to get this in between each tooth can prove challenging, especially if you have shaky hand. Thankfully, it's very easy to clean up with a bit of spaceship afterwards. Next up, crimson red. This is for that layer of flesh just above the bone. You're gonna need to paint clean here to spare the bone of any overspill. Next, the gourd needed a highlight of flat red. Once again, my friend's stippling comes through to give me varying highlights. If you don't have a mangy brush like this, just use the smallest brush you have, placing the smallest dots you can randomly across the flesh wall. Now this is looking good and gross. Before we move on to the skin, I'd like to take a moment to thank my subscribers over on Patreon. Your monthly support is key to keep this dream train on the tracks. For that, I can't thank you enough. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to the newest name in the painting pantheon, 3D X-Files. Not only have they been a sponsor here on the channel, but they finally etched their name into the wall of greatness. Thank you so much. If you'd like to help support the channel, you'll find a link to the Patreon in the description below. Or you can hit that like and subscribe button. Or even better, leave a comment. I love reading them and responding back to everybody. But for now, it's time to get swifty. It's swifty time today. Back from my swifty break, it's time for Rick to get some skin. To help me out, I basted in gray. This way, the peachy skin tone won't have to work so hard for coverage. And since I don't want a lot of contrast here, I went for full opacity with a couple of coats. Barbarian Flesh is the call for the skin tone. I'm treating this like a typical base coat. I want flat, even coverage, so an overbrush is going to be used to apply this. I use my medium soft round for most of it, but when it comes to the edge around the opening, I switch to a number 2. Using the belly lets me get right up to the edge and get a clean line. Just be sure to go back and clean up any brush strokes that may have occurred. Once the skin was looking good, I moved on to the hair with Void Shield Blue. Again, I'm looking for a clean, even base coat. With light blues, you may have some issues with coverage, even over gray. But if you keep the layers thin, you can use as many of them as you want to build up that color. Keep in mind, 5 thin coats look a lot better than 2 thick ones. Next was his spittle with Elemental Bolt. Nothing different here, just paint what you see and keep it in the lines. Thankfully, greens tend to have great coverage, and this one did not disappoint. For the eye, I brightened it up with Spaceship Exterior. Again, smooth, clean coats. If I want to sell this cartoon look, I want to minimize surface texture as much as I can. Now to blackline with Nulla Oil. The easy cheat sheet for this is wherever you see one color meet another, you want to lay down a line right along it. Do your best to be accurate here, because while you can clean up this later fairly painlessly, it'll be easier to keep the line even now than it will be later. Once the oil dried, it was now just a matter of cleaning up the black line using the colors of each corresponding part. I was shooting for about a 1mm width, and thankfully the model shape worked with me to keep it pretty easy peasy. Now, the sculpted pupil on this model is perfectly round, but on the show they're more of a squiggly smudge, so I gave it a bit of bumpiness to match. Finally, the drool looked like it needed just a little bit of something, so I gave it a light reflection with a bit of alien glue, and then I called Rick done. And I think I succeeded going for that show look. The colors look spot on. I was a bit worried about the green skull, but I was asked to paint it like the artist rendered, and I think it really does work. This is one of those projects that anybody with a printer and a few paints can pull off for themselves, and would make a good introduction paint project for a new painter, so be sure to give it a try. Now, things are a little cattywampus in the studio right now, but I have some awesome projects in the pipeline that I think you'll all dig. Keep an eye out for them soon, as I start year 2 here on YouTube. So until next time, thanks for watching, stay creative, and always enjoy the process.